My son and I have literally spit out milk out of our noses multiple times while listening to his art. It's Daren Streblow. So that you can understand a little bit what I'm talking about, here's just a slight sample about Daren, his humor, and his style of parenting, I guess. Let's check out this video.
All of my boys, though, when they were really little, when you were holding them right here, they like to stick their fingers in your mouth. Did you have a kid like that? Mine like to stick their nail into that soft part under your tongue and dig it in there, so you're like, and then they go for that piñata thing at the back of your throat, so you're like, and then they go for your eyes, bing, and they're mean little boys. And I heard a crash in the kitchen. I ran in there. One of them broke a vase, and there was glass everywhere. And I jumped through and I scooped him up because we were both barefoot. And I heard this beeping sound. He had our phone. He dialed 911 with the speed dial. Have you had a kid do that? It's actually pretty common. And you have to tell them what's going on, or they'll come out to the house. But I'm surrounded by glass. I'm wrestling with him in the arm, and I got the phone up to this ear. This is what that call sounded like to 911. 911, state your emergency. Accident. Don't do this. They get there really quick.
Welcome back. That's Daren Streblow. You can catch him on the Daren Streblow Comedy Show. And on our network, we have the Daren Streblow Comedy Show minicast with excerpts from his show, where it's not just him and his buddies looking at the world around us and cracking wise, but also where he gets on the line and talks with other comedians as well. Daren, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, man?
Doing real good, real good. Daren, we're talking parenting today, and
yes.
You stand in very unique shoes in that you're a dad and you're a comic.
Yes.
You're seriously funny. I guess let's set the stage first of all.
Most comedians shouldn't be allowed to take on wife. It's too hard on them because they always end up in the routine somehow. But it works pretty well.
I guess set the stage for us first, Daren. How long have you been married, and how many kids do you have?
20 years, 4 kids, 4 boys, all under the age of 17. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The joke is we'll never be able to resell the house, ever. It's going to burn it down when we're done.
You've got fruit snacks and boogers and all kinds of things in every crevice.
Everywhere. And it's hard to decipher between the two. It's awful. You guys know there's so many kids out there.
Daren, you are, well, as I said, you're in unique shoes in that your job often takes you away from the house.
Yes, indeed.
As you're hitting the road, as you're performing at certain churches and venues across the country. Mm-hmm. How do you do that? How can you be an effective Christian dad partnered with your wife when you're 3 states away?
Well, I think part of it is when you are home, you got to put together good habits of communication. And then when you get on the road, sort of try to match those patterns, except do it over the phone or like we're doing over Skype or something like that. And that just gives your wife and kids access to you, and they can continue their lives without too much interruption when you're on the road. For example, at home, before we go to bed, my wife and I tend to talk about the day and, just work things out before we go to sleep at night. And when we're on the road, we try to do that too. Just pick up the phone and how was your day? What's going on? And try not to let that habit fall by the wayside just because you're a few states away. And you can do that with your kids too.
And those are shoes, or that's a pattern. It doesn't matter if you're a stand-up comedian or an actor, or even if you're working sales or you're an IT consultant. I mean, there's a lot of us. The world's gotten so small. A lot of us are having pulled away from home for days at a time. Do you run into people that face that same battle as you?
Yeah, and it's always a challenge, and I think it's just a matter of just trying to be there. When your kids, for example, I always say to my kids before I leave, hey, you can call me anytime. And they go, okay. And if I do get a call, which isn't often, it's like questions like, do you know where the TV remote is? Can I use your
milk.
iPad? Hypothetically, if the bathroom sink were flowing on the floor, would that be bad? Hypothetically, but these little questions, it's just an access point where they can talk to you about stuff. And if they feel like you're able to connect with them at any time, I think it makes them feel comfortable, and that helps when you're on the road like that. So a lot of people have the same struggle, especially when you come home. That's a struggle because let's say there are times when I've done cruises, and I come home and you're away for 2-3 weeks, and your wife is there, and she's been taking care of the kids the whole time, and meanwhile, this guy she barely remembers comes back home, starts putting his clothes in the closet, and starts bossing her kids around. There's some tension there, So and that's kind of a universal if you travel. So we try to make that transition work a little better. When I come home, instead of just coming home and bossing the kids around, we'll go out for ice cream just for an hour, just sort of debrief and be together, and then go home. Or if it's been a while and if my wife's on the brink of insanity, I'll come home, grab the kids, and take them to a hotel and just give her a run of the house for 24 hours by herself, just a mental health break, And that can be expensive, but if you collect points while you go to hotels, collect those travel points, that's a good way to cash them in. Just a hotel that's only 10 miles from your house, bring the kids there, let them swim, and let your spouse have some mental health there. So that's another thing that we do.
We have some people that are tweeting in some questions for Daren. Joel, who's on the line?
Hi, Daren. Yeah, we have a guest asking, and in some ways this might dovetail on what we just recently spoke about with Rod Drexler's. Do Daren's kids always ask him to be funny and tell jokes? Also, when you get back after being gone so long, are you kind of like a grandparent, and is the temptation to just play around with the kids and have fun, or how do you balance that?
That's an excellent question. For the former, my kids don't think I'm funny at all, so that doesn't. They don't ask
They're
me.
missing
They
out.
tell me jokes. They tell, this is actually funny, Dad. That should be a part of. Maybe you should juggle, Dad. That's comments like that. But for the second, I think it depends on your personality. I've heard some guys and ladies who travel say that when you travel, let's just be the fun dad or the fun mom when they come home. But for me, I maybe I'm just bossy. I like telling my kids what to do, and I like jumping right back into it. I think the important thing that either way is just transition well, so that they don't find themselves suddenly having this presence in their life just make it jarring. I try to make it as seamless as possible, and if it works well, I mean, sometimes my kids are, when you travel a lot, my kids, when they're really little, they'll say, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to go to do a comedy show a couple states away." "Well, you went somewhere last week, didn't you?" And I go, "Yeah, you know something? Most little boys' dads work 5 days a week, 8 in the morning till 5 at night." Like, "No." "Yeah. And they do this all year long." Like, "That's sick." I'm like, I know. So they think everyone else is messed up. But, I'm home for quite a bit of time and then on the road. And I don't mind it if they just don't really notice that I'm gone for a day or two. I don't mind if they're kind of ambivalent about me leaving, because that tells me they're comfortable. And I want them to be, just traveling is just kind of a part of it, and not being worried about me on the road or feeling like their routines are interrupted. I think it's important that it sort of all fits together. So
Now,
I don't know if that makes sense.
Weaving those different schedules and the different patterns is one thing with the kids. What do you and your wife do to make sure that you guys stay interconnected? As you say, there's times when you do cruises or whatnot, you're gone for a lot of days. How do you and your bride stay on the same page?
Well, we do try to do the phone. We have done Skype. There was one Christmas I was gone. I've only worked one Christmas. I was on a Disney cruise, and what we did was we set up Skype, and then while they were celebrating Christmas, sitting in a chair was the iPad in my face. I mean, how sad is that? It was like the Jetsons, but it was just kind of a little, it's not as good as being there, but it's just a little step to remind everybody that there's a relationship there that works. But sometimes if I'm in a place where I can't call, I rediscover writing. Craft a nice long email. Those are fun to get, and we'll sort of banter back and forth over email. And it's kind of funny the relational stuff that comes out when you put things in writing that you wouldn't normally do in person. And we sort of rediscover our writing selves in those contexts. That can be kind of a fun, healthy thing to do. But I think just talking a lot and caring about what's going on, because when you're on the road, you tend to be bombarded with a lot of stimulation by the event you're doing, the places you were at, and stuff like that. Just keep in mind, okay, my wife had such and such happen at work. That's important to her. Let me talk to her about that. My son was threatening to burn such and such down. I wonder if he did that. Check on that. Stuff like that. And just caring about that sort of stuff really helps. And if something really important comes up in their life, take the time off to make sure. I'm guessing I should go to all their weddings. What do you guys think?
Good idea. That's a good
I think
start.
so. Yeah, I'm gonna take time off for that. I try to go to every play. My son just did Shakespeare. I was there for one of the shows. I tried to make sure I was at one of the shows. Didn't understand a word that was said. Not a word. Got to admit it. Not a word. But I loved watching him
perform. That even in your sanest of days.
High English, can't do that. But it was really quite fun to see him, and just trying to do as much as you can within the reality of you got to work and you got to travel.
Right.
You shouldn't be ashamed of that, but at the same time, work with your family so that they're getting their needs met.
We've got another message coming in on the chat. Joel, who's ringing in for Daren?
Well, it's the same guest has the question. The flip side of the question is, how do you use humor in your parenting?
Great question. Yeah, humiliation and sarcasm is a great way to raise up a child. I'm just kidding.
Works in my house.
We try to laugh a lot if we can with the kids, and I'm one of these parents that when I like people to follow the rules, and when they don't follow the rules, I get upset. And then sometimes, if I can, I will remember little me doing the same thing when I was a kid, and rather than preach from a point of, hey, you shouldn't do that because right and wrong, blah blah blah, which is important, but also say, and I did the exact same thing when I was a kid. Oh, really? Yeah, and just talk about it and tell the story. And sometimes it's funny. I mean, and that diffuses the situation. Humor is a great diffuser if you can use it. Even for yourself, when you get mad about it's frustrating when you're working with these little people trying to get things to work. And if you can diffuse it with a little bit of humor, sometimes that will help you walk through it with a little less emotion. And humor is a beautiful way.
You mentioned the importance of being there, obviously for their weddings, for their school plays.
That's the plan.
There are life moments that just spontaneously pop up, though. Heartache that happened at school, a best friend betrays, something happened between the teacher and him. And how do you and your wife handle those crisis moments, particularly when you're away?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, if it's not a crisis that is so awful that you have to actually, get an emergency ticket and get home, you spend a lot of time on the phone, working out the crisis, but also you just make sure that they're getting what they need from you emotionally during the crisis. If my son got hurt or something, you're on the phone and just, how you feel about that? I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you. Like my youngest just had a pneumonia and was in the hospital for a week. And fortunately, God really, allowed it so that I was there for the first week of that. I was there for the first 4 days. But when I left, he was well enough for me to leave, and I was on the road. I was able to call and get him on the phone. I mean, he's only 5 years old, but how you doing? Bleh. And how you feel about it? Bleh. Even it was that. My wife said, he kind of smiled after talking to me. You just try to not only manage the situation, but try to be an emotional support on the road as best as you can, and don't forget to pray. I mean, I think I pray a lot for my family when I'm on the road. If I'm on an airplane, I pray a lot for myself through the whole flight. The whole flight.
Pilot.
Prayer. I mean, I think travel can really strengthen your faith and praying for your family on the road, because it is a helpless feeling. You're not actually there, but I think God teaches you faith in that moment. You're not there, but He's there, and pray to the one who can actually do something about that. So prayer is an important part of a traveling person, I think, for the family.
If you were to talk to a group of dads who are in the same boat as you, who are out on the road quite a bit, or maybe even they're at home, but their job just requires them, between commute time and working long days, they can't be at home as often as they would like to. What are the 1 or 2 tips that you would give these dads as far as this is how to be an effective dad, an effective husband, and still manage to do your job?
Well, boy, I really think that's going to depend contextually on the person, his or her personality, and because it's a real balancing act. I think there are schools of thought out there, sort of if you're a real loving dad and husband, you won't let anything get in the way of all those precious moments, and you will always be there no matter what, and never let your job interfere with your family. Those people are called unemployed. That doesn't work. You've got to make a living, and making a living is loving your family. I don't care what they say. But on the flip side of that, you really need to balance that with the emotional needs of your family. And that's not always a clear road to take. How do you balance work? How do you balance family? And again, I go back to faith, because you don't need a formula from a comedian on a podcast to help you with that decision. You need the God of the universe to give you that on a day-to-day basis. He's the one who's going to show you and guide you through that process, because it's one of those unanswerable questions. What's that going to look like for you? But if He's called you into the work you're doing and He's given you this family, He's going to show you how to do that. It's just a matter of reaching out to Him. I think sometimes prayer is the last place we go. Maybe it's the first place we should go. And then you'll see all these things sort of working out. Never perfectly, but in a way that I think you'll see His hand of guidance in your being a spouse and a father or a wife. I'm trying to include women as traveling.
Because they're on the road as well.
Because I forget all the pronouns. I have pronoun issues. Please don't hate me.
I use NIV translation, so it's all
Oh, you do? Oh, good for you. Good for you.
Darren, thank you so much for not just making us laugh every day on the Daren Streblow radio show, which, by the way, just coming in, we were listening to XM radio and heard a lot of your stuff, and just phenomenal stuff. Thank you so much.
Very sweet of you. Thank you.
But here's why I say thank you so much. I think a lot of us can easily, whether it's Pandora or satellite radio or whatever, it's easy to find comedy now, easier than ever before. It's harder than ever before to find comedy that I can listen to with my little boys.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Thanks to you, we found that outlet where we're able to really laugh together, look at life together, and laugh, and it's all because of your efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that encouragement. Thank you for providing E Squared Media Network, because that helps us give us an outlet for that kind of comedy, and people seem to be really enjoying it. And thank you for the encouragement you have in the life of people around the globe. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, Darren. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
So that wraps up our parenting podcast. You know, as Daren said, the key that we often forget is to get on our knees and pray. Too often it's the last thing that we do. It's the last resort. It's when we're at our wit's end. Oh yeah, maybe God might have the answer. If we start every day, if we start every scenario with saying, all right, God, what do you have for me and how do you want to handle this? It makes parenting, it makes life that much easier when you realize it's not all on my shoulders. I've got a God of the universe that's going before me, that's going to help me with this deal with my son, with this tension between my wife, with this scenario at work that inevitably is going to make its way back home and impact our lives at home. If we get on our knees and just say, all right, God, you're the God of the universe, I'm just lowly Jefferson here, help me out, I guarantee you're going to see results that you just wouldn't believe. We'd like to thank Daren and Pam and Carrie and my dad, Rod, all of our guests, as well as our crew, Jordan, Carl, Danny, Alan, Joel, our executive producer. Thank you so much for all the work that goes into these webcasts. As Joel said, in just a couple months, we're going to have one with John Stonestreet and Jeff Allen talking about impacting our culture. Really look forward to that one. And obviously, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Patheos, Patheos.com, where you get to join in the evangelical conversation. There are so many amazing blogs, podcasts, posts, a wealth of information on the 21st century, this world we live in today, and biblical outlooks on what God would have us do. And there's a lot of room for dialogue, which is the coolest bit. We also have BizVid Communications. As I mentioned earlier, Kaz Taylor and Bill Gruber, two amazing guys that have an amazing production company that can take your dream, and I'm talking whether it's just an idea that we want to gift our grandfather, a history of our family, and here's kind of what I have in mind. They'll help you script that whole thing out, make it happen, produce it, and give an amazing little video for Grandpa, as well as full-on broadcast commercials, internet videos, training videos, corporate videos, sales pieces. If you've got a visual idea that you want to communicate, BizVid Communications is the place to check out to make it happen. And finally, Wisdom Matrix with Dana and Gary Avant. They will help you, once you have that website, they'll help you specifically build it in such a way so that the world will get their eyes on your website through SEO management, optimization, I should say, through website design, through getting the right eyes on your site and making the most of it all. Wisdom Matrix will make it happen. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know we ran a little bit later than the hour that we had originally prescribed, but I mean, hey, if you're talking to the likes of Carrie Green and Pam Rohr, Daren Streblow, and of course my dad, how can we cut anybody short, right? It's just been a wealth of information. If you have any other questions, the chat roll is going to end in just a little bit, but don't hesitate to contact us via Twitter or Facebook. You'll find us anywhere you like in social media. We're everywhere, and of course on our website. That's E Squared Media Network, the number 2, medianetwork.com. Until next time, I'm Jefferson Drexler. We look forward to seeing you then. Thanks a lot. Bye.